Now to introduce Luke Hanna-Fraser. He's an advocate and a member of the Durham Men Take Action. Luke grew up in Orangeville, Ontario. He attended Fanshawe College, where he graduated with a diploma in law and security. He then attended the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Criminology. Luke remained in Durham Region after university, where he was employed in frontline social services for the past 9 years. For the past 4 years, Luke has focused on providing frontline support to victims of gender-based violence in the criminal justice system. This frontline experience gained him a seat at the table with the Violence Prevention Coordinating Council of Durham. The VPCC appointed Luke as a group lead for Durham Men Take Action. Durham Men Take Action is an initiative that engages men as allies in the prevention of violence against women through action, education, and leadership. Let's give a warm welcome to Luke.
Thank you. A little bit taller, so I'm just going to adjust this. Thank you for having me. This is an extremely important conversation for me. I just want to take a step back, maybe not physically because I have to speak into the mic, but I want to take a step back to acknowledge my privilege. My privilege as a man means that even though I have only a few years working as an advocate, I'm able to share this stage with two very accomplished academics, an accomplished journalist and advocate, and a lifetime mentor, and actually a personal mentor to me. I'm somewhat of an unusual case, being a man that talks about, works in, and is passionate about gender-based violence. I hold one perspective that is constantly growing in regards to violence against women in our communities. However, it's important for me to say that my perspective is as a cisgender white male, and that no matter how much I learn or how many people trust me with their individual stories, I will never precisely know the experiences of others. So as much as I can be a caretaker for these stories and their importance, it will always be important for me to recognize my privilege and use that to hold space for others. I think of an example. Instead of me telling a story about someone's sexual harassment, it's more important for me to promote their telling of their experiences of sexual harassment. Kind of a final thing to say before getting into the meat of my presentation is that I don't have all the answers. I'm sorry, sir, in the front row, if that's what you came here for. You might be asking, why me? Am I some type of better man? Why am I doing this work? Do I care more? Do I have some sort of special skills? Maybe if you ask my mother, but the answer overwhelmingly is no. I'm just like you. And this presentation tonight is specifically for the men listening, and I thank you for that. So tonight I am excited to talk to you about my journey and how I became involved in Durham Men Take Action. Before I get into that, I also want to state, I know there's a lot here, that this isn't a debate speech. This is not an argument. This is not a political statement. This is a conversation. And I know that was prefaced at the beginning of this conversation, in this opening. But what that means to me is that a conversation takes open-mindedness. It takes care and it takes cooperation. It was carefully set up that way, and I really thank the organizers for doing that. And I wanted to remark on that because I think it is an important and crucial way to approach this topic. One of the most harmful things that we can do is turn this into a debate where our tribal instincts kick in, we anchor ourselves to a fundamental belief, we identify as the left or the right, and we become hell-bent on attacking any ideas that aren't perfectly in line with ours. The moment we can put down our competition is the moment we can make our biggest strides in preventing gender-based violence. So Durham Men Take Action is a grassroots movement. The purpose is to create space for men to learn about being an ally, to become an ally, and to take action by participating in anti-violence activities. Men don't often have an appropriate lens for with which to view violence against women because they haven't created it. Until a family member, partner, coworker is a victim of harassment, or worse, it doesn't often enter their sphere. I often hear the theme from men, I know this is important, I have a daughter. The simplicity of this statement really underscores for me a fundamental issue in men's understanding of violence against women. Who am I to critique this viewpoint? Some men are certainly listening because of that very fact, because they have a daughter, and that's valuable too. The point I'm trying to make is that this was important before you had a daughter. So how can we help men understand that? For decades, violence against women has been regarded as a women's issue, and it's only recently that I have written here, despite all the hard work of women, but I want to say in spite of the hard work of women, that men are finally able to step forward and say, and this is very crucial for me, men's violence against women is a men's issue. So this hard work of women has sparked men to begin understanding this issue and their importance within this issue. So I want to truly pull back the curtain and give you an honest view of how Durham Men Take Action started. Well, it was created by a group of women, hardworking, dedicated women who had who had essentially come from shelters, who had come from other advocacy groups, who had come from healthcare, that knew that the key to prevention of violence against women included men. So a lot of hours went into the first step in creating this group to engage men. A one-day conference was started. They had amazing guest speakers. There was a delicious free lunch. It was all on work time. You know, there was a lot of people saying, yeah, I can get behind this issue. I can relate. And they came to the conference. It was well attended. People were all excited to walk away with these tools to talk about toxic masculinity, about being an active bystander, and that was really good. But the purpose of this conference was not just to be an information session. The purpose was to facilitate action. And it kind of brings me to something I read on Reddit recently, and that's always dangerous kind of saying that, but it was a remarkable quote that was, nowadays we're satisfied just being informed about a subject, and we have really little motivation to actually do something about it. This whole conference was trying to prove that idea wrong. So at the end of the conference, people were asked to do that very thing. People were asked to put their contact information down, to be invited to the next step, to take action, instead of just saying, I support ending violence against women, and then going about your life. So what happened was remarkable. People put their email addresses down, their contact information down. It seemed very positive. So we geared up for the second step. A venue was picked, food was ordered, 2 people showed up. I was one of them. The other guy quickly started to say, you know, I actually came here to say that I don't know if I can volunteer for this. I wanted to tell you in person, and took off. It was sad. Then we tried another recruitment strategy, and another, and another. In fact, several other recruitment strategies were used, and it became clear that this was the most difficult area to resolve. Why were men not willing to come for this? Why was the buy-in so low? So I took it upon myself to find out what was holding so many guys back. I can talk to guys, I'll ask them, I'll figure it all out. When I spoke with men, over and over again, the themes that held them back were fear and shame, disguised in a bunch of excuses. but nevertheless fear and shame, which are very important. Men fearing being judged by their peers for standing up about violence. In essence, being a victim of toxic masculinity while trying to prevent toxic masculinity. The dread of failure. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the skills. I don't know a lot about this issue. I'll say the wrong thing. It scares me. I'm not a bad guy. I don't want to put myself out there for an allegation. But it didn't deter. Slowly but surely, we chipped away, gaining volunteers with the support of all of these women. We wrote a business plan. We wrote a mission statement. We wrote vision, values. We created a structured plan of events. We developed a social media following. We spoke with local politicians, our local police service. We did public speaking events in universities, gaining one volunteer at a time. It took a year to get 6 men. We did events. We did walk a mile in her shoes. We raised money for a local shelter. We participated in Take Back the Night, Politicians for Progress, and a Valentine's Day campaign. Then something remarkable happened. The VPCC said, "Luke, would you be willing to lead this group?" Now, normally when someone says, we're thinking about you as a leader, you're like, this is wonderful. This is a promotion. And don't get me wrong, I have no problem being counted on or the extra challenges that come along with being a leader. That's not an issue for me. But when this was talked about, this was different. I was scared. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the skills. What if I say the wrong thing? It had all come full circle. However, I was very lucky because something else had been going on for me. I had spent years working with people who were victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. It's no secret that most of these people were women. I developed deep, meaningful relationships with these women and girls that gave me another perspective. It was a privilege and an honor to walk alongside each one of them as they began their journey of recovery. I began to understand the massive impact that gender-based violence had on their lives. I gained insight into the systems that often allowed the perpetrators of this violence to carry it out and the silencing effects that our culture has on speaking up about sexual violence and domestic violence. This was too personal. This was too important. I began to understand what was at stake. So what's my message for this conversation? It's simply put to say to each and every man listening, you belong in this conversation without analyzing or critiquing your breadth of knowledge on this subject. You belong here not because women need you. You belong here not to fight for women or to save them. You belong here because other men and young boys need you as a positive role model. A wonderful TED Talk by Robert Eckstein asks men these questions. Do the women in your life that you care about regard you as an ally in the prevention of violence against women? Do you know what victim blaming is? Do you know what rape myths are? What type of language do you use when you talk about women? Do you automatically become defensive when you hear discussions about violence against women or male privilege? And lastly, do people look at you and say, this is someone I can share my story with without feeling judged and blamed? This is someone that I can share my story with that will listen and provide support. You may not be able to answer yes to each one of these questions, and it certainly should be a continued work of progress. If you want to continue this discussion, please email us at durhamentakeaction@gmail.com or drop us a line on Facebook to continue the conversation. A shift in culture starts with you. Thank you.